All right. Well, let's kick this thing off. As I said, good afternoon. My name is Todd Cherner. Hold on, Jagger. I have a son. My name is Todd Cherner, and I'm pleased today to introduce our colleague, Neve from Microsoft. Before we begin, however, I would like to remind everyone to please mute your microphones to avoid background noise. If you have questions for the presenter, please type them in the chat, and we'll address them during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Neve and allow him his time to make a presentation. And we look forward to some Q&A at the end. All yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Todd. Pleasure to be with everyone again. If you had the opportunity to attend my session yesterday, thank you. And I'm looking forward to building upon that and more focusing on how some of our Microsoft technologies work in some of the accessible space. A little bit about me. If you didn't have a chance, my name is Neve Abramov. I'm a senior modern workplace specialist based in just south of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I am responsible for what we call the Microsoft Modern Workspace. Modern work is different depending on the vertical that you may be in, right? But in the education space where I specialize in, for me, I look at how we use AI in the classroom, in administrative settings, at executive levels, for research and things of that nature, to support end user adoption of our AI technologies. Particular to this discussion today, we're going to focus around our Copilot technologies, both Copilot with commercial data protection, as well as M365 Copilot. Really appreciate everyone being here, and we're just going to go ahead and jump into the session. We'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So if you can see my slides, we're going to start off talking about accessible AI is responsible AI. And really our key takeaways here is we want AI should be accessible from the get-go. And to get there, Microsoft's developed a few accessible AI principles. We want AI to be accessible, for which which for Microsoft means that we are compliant with our own set of standards called Microsoft Accessibility Standards. And it is a combination of external standards that we've taken from across the world. We try to incorporate disability data into our large language models, right? So LLMs, large language models, they are trained on specific data sets. And if these data sets don't contain disability data, large language models run the risk of producing incomplete and potentially ableist responses. So we ensure that our Copilot does have disability data sets as a part of its large language model. Lastly, we focus on innovation, right? AI, we truly believe AI has the power to drive innovation beyond anything we have seen to date. And we look to leverage this moment in time to drive shifts in innovation for accessibility and beyond. So again, we're going to spend some time today in M365 Copilot, right? M365 Copilot is Microsoft's generative AI. It allows for our large language model to work with the Microsoft Graph, where it's the connective tissue where people's data reside, and between the two working together, you can use natural language so that in which to deliver the results that you may need. And this will allow for greater creativity, able to produce content, analyze data, and do so much more with the power of what generative AI can provide. For those not familiar, this is a nice kind of just graph that kind of articulates how M365 Copilot works together. Actually, I prefer. Oh, my apologies. This visual over here, again, it talks about how we take the large language model, we take your data in the Microsoft Graph, and we allow you to use natural language to get the results that you're trying to produce. AI, Microsoft Copilot, right? We think of all the different ways in which you could leverage Copilot in an array of different realms of accessibility, right? So in um, for people who are dyslexic, you can certainly use Copilot to summarize a long document, or use Copilot to simplify language. For folks that are neurodivergent, you could certainly ask Copilot to generate highlights from a chat message over a specific period of time. You can look at it at a mobility stance in which, mobility disabilities can search for conversations across emails, chats, files. For individuals who may be blind or have low vision, you can kind of create PowerPoint presentations without sighted assistance. There are multiple ways in which you can engage with Copilot, in which you could feel supported in a variety of accessible ways. Some examples that we will look at, and I will provide some demos around these examples. Composing more impactful emails, right? One of the features within Copilot is to be able to coach an individual on their tone. When we sometimes work with folks who have autism, coaching by Copilot will allow for them to adjust their tone in an email. People with dyslexia who struggle to get started writing an email can leverage drafting with Copilot to generate a first draft of an email. Know that when you use Copilot to draft an email, it never creates the email and makes it to fruition, right? It creates the draft for you to review. And from there, you have multiple ways in which you can create a variety of iterations until you feel like it's your voice, your tone, a tone that's more comfortable for you to produce, and then say, okay, this is the email that I want to send. So there's a lot of ways in which you can interact with Copilot to produce that result, depending on your accessibility need. Before meeting with a customer, but this is something that I often maximize and use. I get brought into a lot of emails as a both technical specialist and person with an expertise in Copilot, sometimes midstream. And by the time I'm even able to respond, 7, 8, 12 emails may have been sent. I often leverage the summarize features so that in which I can take that large chain of emails and get a nice description of what's been discussed. And then I can be more focused on where I need to respond and generate a reply to prepare for a meeting with a customer. People who are blind can ask Copilot to summarize the email, content that is not accessible with a screen reader, and it also summarizes in an accessible format. Another way in which you can work with Copilot is for summary purposes, right? This allows you to, instead of perhaps, especially if you're dyslexic or have auditory processing disorder, you could use Copilot to recap a meeting and action items so far during a meeting. So if you feel like perhaps you're a little lost in the discussion, you could bring up Copilot right in the middle of the meeting and recap the meeting so far, right? And it'll give you an array of bullets to consider. People with autism ask Copilot to assess the tone of the call itself and suggest questions to ask. People with mobility disabilities can use Teams Recap to capture notes and action items following a meeting. And then last but not least, people who are neurodivergent can request a summary of Teams chats for a specific topic and generate an agenda for an up-and-coming meeting. So there's just a lot of ways in which Copilot can be leveraged for accessible purposes. Next, I have a quick video. I'm going to monitor the chat just to make sure that you can hear the video. Please let me know if you can or cannot hear the video. I'm going to go ahead and hit start.
AI has a massive opportunity to help people with disabilities like me. I'm going to show you some of my favorite features that help improve my productivity on the daily basis.
And I'll just go into Copilot and say, summarize this email.
I'm able to really use my voice through the microphone and voice access it's built into Copilot. I say,
Tell me the changes in accessibility for the past month. I'm going to launch Word.
Describe what you'd like to write, including notes or an outline, and Copilot can generate a draft to help you get started.
In this case, I'm going to ask it to write about the history of computer science.
History of computer science. Generate.
One of the things that is challenging when you have dyslexia is writing. So to help with that, I will ask Copilot to write a draft email. I'm going to ask it to still keep my tone because I want it to sound like me, and I want it to be short, asking Mary to do a pre-read of the document. And it's now generating a template email, which is short and sweet, which is a brilliant productivity enhancement for me.
When I think about Gener AI, I think about things that I've done in my 20+ year career in accessibility that we've not been able to do before now. And some of these things are literally life changing.
This process without Copilot usually takes an hour, but this took 3 minutes. It's important to give me the time back to work on the things that I love. And generative AI does that.
If you want to make AI more accessible and better for you, use it and provide feedback. I'm excited about the possibility that it will help bridge the disability divide.
Yeah.
That was my last slide. So we're going to move into a couple of demos here. And yeah, awesome. Let's start with this first icon over here. This is called M365 Chat. M365 Chat is, oh, actually, I just want to make sure you guys can still see my screen, correct? Awesome, thank you. I appreciate the responses. So M365 Chat is a app that comes with our license of M365 Copilot, and M365 Chat is grounded in the entire Microsoft graph. So I could certainly ask it questions so that in which it will pull data in multiple spaces. So perhaps, you know, one of my colleagues who I work with pretty much daily, if not hourly, Sophia and I are about to connect. Sometimes it can be challenging to recap and look through every email, every discussion Sophia and I have had to prepare for my meeting, considering we touch on so many different things. So I can put a prompt in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste it to save us some time and you not watching me in my terrible typing. But summarize chats between Sophia and I. And as you can see, that's her name typed in, but actually I could just look her up and it will actually grab her information. There's a couple people there. There she is. And suggest a meeting agenda based on a summary of our chats. If I go ahead and hit send over here, it's going to look up Sophia and it's going to comb through our chats and provide me an array of options that we can talk about. So here's several things that her and I spoke about. And just like that, the AI actually created the entire agenda for our meeting. This is a great for an individual who has dyslexia or is neurodivergent, allows you to be very focused and allows AI to kind of at least assist you on the things that you and Sophia can connect with. One of the things that I, often say is this by no means is a pilot for you. It's not going to 100% deliver the results that you're expecting every single time, but it's going to get you 70 to 85% there. So that in which, okay, I have some great ideas here, some things that were really top of mind that Sophia and I wanted to talk about. And maybe there's one or two things that I want to edit from here, but I feel a lot more prepared for my day by using this technology. And it certainly took a lot off of my workload to ask the question for M365 Chat. Similarly, if I decide to do a new topic, and I always recommend if you're going to deviate from this discussion to a completely different ask, I can go ahead and go to new chat and get a clean slate right here. Kinjo and I, who is helping me moderate today's discussion, have had multiple email threads back and forth, and I may be meeting with him later to to kind of bring up a couple of things that we were emailing about. So I could just say summarize emails between Kinjo and I, and suggest a meeting agenda based off of emails versus chat. I could even do a combination of the two. And same thing, it's going to comb through my entire Outlook. And there are all of the emails he and I had exchanged. And here is a recommendation of how he and I will engage, could potentially engage in a future meeting that we're going to have together. Very wonderful, very simple, very easy, and especially if perhaps you have a mobility disability, to just be able to do a quick message and get all of this could have you very prepared very quickly. Also, one thing I always tend to show people is if you're looking for shortcuts, you can always hit the view prompt button. And here are an array of ways you could use Copilot to get a myriad of prompts that, especially for accessible purposes, if you just want to click on a prompt and have it produce the prompt for you, it will provide it to you immediately. So now I'm going to move on from M365 chat, and let's say we want to use it, same thing for Outlook. Here's an email that I was working with earlier. It was regarding supporting some individuals with some funding, and it's a very long thread, and I can't really remember exactly what we talked about because the thread is so many emails long. So, for accessible purposes, if I just need to be focused and summarize on what we've done so far, I could hit the Summarize by Copilot button up top, and it's going to take all of those emails and put them into a bulleted format. And so as you can see right here, here are all the bullets from the email, from the summary of emails that we've had here. Another thing that I can do is I can go ahead and respond back to my colleagues. Now, one of the concerns some people have is sometimes, with my colleagues that may have autism, tone may be a concern. So let's say this was an email that I was going to write to someone. Give me 1 second. So if you take a look at this right over here, you can kind of see probably not the nicest tone that I could have taken with my colleagues, right? Team, I needed a response 2 days ago. This is unacceptable. Why is this taking so long? I need this processed ASAP. If I go to Copilot right over here in the top right corner, I can go ahead and get some coaching on my tone. And if you look right here, it's already giving me some tips, right? Maintain professionalism and respect, encourage cooperation and support, and specify expectations and deadlines. It looks at the email and considers quite a few things that I've used here based off of 3 criteria: tone, reader sentiment, and clarity. So I can take this coaching and decide, what, this does seem like a little bit of a harsh tone. I want to go ahead and draft this in a more appropriate way. I can go ahead and go back to Copilot, go to my drafting option, and see, here's the email that I wrote earlier. Just formatting here. And now I'm going to ask Copilot to help me perhaps work on my tone based on some of the feedback I had. So I can go right up here. And here's just me. I already pre-wrote this prompt just to save us some time today. Hey, Copilot, can you help me rewrite my email below? I'd like a more constructive tone, appeal to a team effort, and make it clear that processing this funding request will allow for us to move the project forward. And by doing this, the AI so it gave me a first answer, and I don't like it because that was what I did before. So I want to maybe make it more casual. I can go ahead and change the tone of it again to make it sound more formal. If I don't like this, I could certainly discard it and have it rewritten. And so I'll go back to drafting with Copilot. All right. Let's see if we get better success the second time around. I always appreciate everyone having some patience in a live demo. See, and as you can see, now it definitely has more of a softer tone. Let's work together to resolve this quickly. Processing this funding request will allow us to move the project forward. It definitely uses it, that changes the tone up so that in which it sounds like it's a little bit more collaborative. I could ask it to be a little bit longer. I often ask it to be more casual because I tend to find the tone to be a little bit more respectful as well. So that's another way in which you could use Copilot. Can you ask it to be more snarky? You could absolutely ask it to be more snarky if you so choose to, but it may give you the suggestion not to be snarky. Awesome. So, and then I could say right over here, and this is what I was saying earlier, I could say keep it, and there you go. It changed the entire email, and I can send this along. I'm going to show just one or two more things, just so I leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So I showed a little bit in Outlook. I love always looking at Teams meetings. So if I go to a previous meeting that I had, this is a meeting that I attended. It's a volunteer orientation day here in the Carolinas. We were working with some minority students to come to one of our college campuses and kind of learn about opportunities at a local community college. So right here on the, first of all, I can always click on this recap button, and I'm going to get an array of notes that allows me to be super focused and hyper vigilant on what I need to get out of this. Here's an array of meeting notes about the meeting. There's also some follow-up tasks I can consider, and it even takes the meeting and actually breaks it up into chapters. So if I need to be very focused on a specific area, like I want to know what my role assignment is, I can go right into the meeting, click on role assignments, and it's going to bring me right to that space where I can find the most information that I need. I can also find all the content that was reviewed in the meeting, even look at the transcript, all generated by AI. If I want to ask Copilot additional questions, I can go right into here and I can ask a myriad of questions of sentiment or how people were kind of feeling about certain things. So one of the things I always recommend, as I showed earlier, you can hit the view prompts button. And here's a great way for me to just hit a quick recap the meeting. And right there, I'll get a quick recap of the entire meeting. And there's an array of other prompts that I could ask without even having to type anything with my hands. I know this was quick, everyone. I appreciate everyone's time. I know we have 7 minutes left, so I perhaps will take a pause here and allow for everyone to ask some questions in the Q&A.
Great. Thanks so much, Neve. That was very helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourself. I think you can unmute yourself.
Yes, it can. It can certainly listen to your meetings and create minutes. A lot of that's part of the recap. You could literally just ask also Copilot as well, please create minutes for the meeting we just had. So that's definitely one way Copilot can work. I also like to talk about the other side of the spectrum, right? Can you disable Copilot? 100%. You could disable it for any kind of reasons, if it's highly confidential or something that's, you know, that you simply aren't allowed to for whatever legal reasons. You could turn it off. You could also have a combination of all of the things. So in order for this aspect of Copilot to work for the Teams recap, you do require transcripting services. You can actually set up the settings in Copilot so that it uses the transcript to create the notes, to do the meeting minutes and things of that nature, and then have it automatically trash the transcript right after so that you're remaining in compliance for whatever you may need for compliance purposes. Let's see. Lots of questions. In Blackboard, it cuts out after 30 minutes, so the sessions don't fully record suggestions. Are you saying Copilot cuts out or an AI associated to that technology? I'd have to look into that one, Rubina, but by all means, okay, awesome, Rubina. I would love to look into that for you, and I always do this at the end of all my sessions. Send me a note on that. That's my email right there, and I will 100% look into that. Copilot, absolutely. There are ways that we can work with you on procuring Copilot. By all means, work with the Microsoft rep associated to your K-12, and we can definitely work on that. How do I get audio to Copilot, or is it only in Teams? Like if I recorded a meeting using my phone, could I use Copilot to generate the minutes? I'm trying to just understand the question. How do I get audio to Copilot? Scott, if you can elaborate on that, I would love to try and answer that question. Richard, I love your question. Yes, currently Copilot can translate to 17 different languages, and we're still growing on that. And I always try to show that if I have time, because for me, accessibility is equally, working with English language learners, right? Like that's a huge accessibility concern. Often, when I'm showing that recap of the meeting, I'll say, please put in my native language, and I'll specify the language, and it'll translate it for you. So, Dana, Copilot is a separate license, at least the M365 Copilot talked about today, but there's also the Copilot with commercial data protection that usually is a license that is free for education institutions. So there's different versions of Copilot that are included, and then there's different ones that you may invest in. How about creating avatars? Great question. So we currently have avatars in our in a different type of licensing packages, but we are working on building avatars in Microsoft Teams for education. So hopefully soon. So voice recorder of a meeting. I think I might have a meeting with a student, but record my phone recorder, and I would like Copilot to summarize. Scott, I'll have to look into that one. I see what you're saying. Send me an email on your ask, and I will investigate further on that. I'm not so sure of the answer today. Absolutely, Scott. Hopefully I got through everyone's questions. At least in the chat, I did not see the Q&A. Well, there's 3 in the Q&A. Let's see.
There were 2 more in the Q&A, Neve. One asked, is Copilot free as part of the suite?
Which I answered that for Dana, so I think we're good on that one. Who
Great.
has ownership and control over the data generated by using AI? Oh, I love that. So when you use Copilot within your tenant, all of the generated, I guess I'm asking for the data generated, you mean like the prompt that's generated by the AI, who owns that? It's usually the person who made the ask to the AI owns that response, if you will. As far as the data that our AI is learning from, I always answer this question. So in a tenant, a Microsoft tenant, when you're using Copilot, that model is only training itself on the data within that tenant, and Microsoft is not using that data to train its larger language model. And so hence, it's only designed to train the Copilot unique to that organization. So hopefully it's partially answering your question. But at the end of the day, you have control over the data generated based on the prompt that you ask. If you use Copilot, does your organization have access to all of your Copilot requests and prompts? That's a great question. I believe I'll have to check. That is, there are certain questions, there are certain things that can be pulled by your organization based off of your security and compliance settings, but I'd have to kind of review that. It's probably a broader discussion. And I know
I hate to cut this, but I believe we're at top of time right now. So Neve, I know you put your email in the chat. So is that a good way for people to follow up with you?
100%. Please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll answer as many questions as I can.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a lucky day at the rest of our AI conference. Been to Vegas too many times. Bye.